Clay, can you shut the door? We all come to the argument for these last and we create the resolution. We are having that point. Okay. Good evening, everyone. We'll get this party started. Apologize to be a couple minutes late when I figured it out. Just so you know, to start off, we're recording audio for our meeting minutes again. I got it working out, and we're also doing screens. So, in theory, when you go to the YouTube channel, you'll see just a screencast with the audio as well for the meeting minutes. And I'm fairly confident that's just the way it'll be in the future. So when we present documents or things up like that, it'll also pop up. We need to start off and ask everyone to get a chance to look at the meeting minutes from last meeting. I need a motion to approve those minutes. Motion.
Second.
Awesome. I'm not sure that works as a form or not, but I don't think we need to either. In case you're wondering, the meeting minutes are available online in an electronic copy. We also send them out usually with the next meeting's agenda. So we try to have them published online within a day of the close the meeting. I see a couple of new cases, so I'll kind of keep that in mind as we go about everything. Go on to old business and select committee on USG grievances. I know we've been leaving this on our old business for a couple weeks, I think almost a month or so now. It's only there this time to ensure that we pass that around. With a couple copies. The actual an operating paper for the committee itself. You've already had that Clay and Diane will be the ones carrying out the committee. This is just an adaptation to our own grievance committee that we have in our constitution, our bylaws. So when we present our new bylaws that are edited, this will look very similar because it was, and why we took a little longer because we wanted to clean it up and adapt it so that we could also use this for us as well. So it's very general in terms of the body and who can bring it up, and you can use it for USG like this instances, but you can also use it for if you want to get rid of me for a Christmas present or something like that. You know. But so, and that's just for your information. We'll ask for a vote for that as an official constitutional thing when we present you with the bylaws and the new constitution. We do have the new constitution done with the bylaws. They're just still waiting, and so you will at least have a copy of those to look over. The winter break, we'll probably just send you packing with those as your Christmas present with the new constitution bylaws, so you have plenty of time to look it over and ask questions or write notes or whatever. We'll literally have like 5 weeks before we vote from when we present it before we vote on it. So, any questions about that? I'm hoping I don't have it up on the screen, and I have a copy of the student fee resolution that we talked about at the last meeting. The consensus was that we were going to approve not a 50-cent proposal for the student legal services fee, but it's a $1 one. That's what the advisory board recommended. USG passed a bill similarly to that. They actually, the bill that was distributed, the resolution was distributed to everyone last week. That's what USG actually voted and approved. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about that, or if you can get a chance to see it.
I'm sorry, I didn't, just the previous item I meant to ask what you were talking about.
Go ahead, shoot.
So what's the step, what's happening with this exactly? So you've written this, the official grievance, that's what you're saying, and so where does it, and then the committee has been formed, and so where does it, what?
So I'll catch you up real quick. So I want to say about 6 weeks ago, a number of RSO.
Yeah, so I knew all that, I was here.
So this is just the operating paper for the committee itself.
Oh.
And so that's all it is.
Oh, okay.
That way Clay he has guidelines to go off of, and no one can kind of question them or push them around and say you do this or that. We wanted to make sure they were on a firm footing, because we'll be working with a lot of people that don't include GPSC, and for obvious reasons, not a whole lot of people in the administration and likewise are exactly ecstatic that we decided and unanimously passed to carry out this committee to begin with. And so the consensus of our executive committee was that we wanted to have just a clear operating paper for getting carried out. And at the same time, when we were looking it over, we saw we put two birds with one stone, and because there was an obvious need for our own grievance procedures and our bylaws that we've been going through our bylaws and constitution the last 6 months or so. And so we adapted our current one and updated it and made it more available, so that way we can use it for this particular situation. We could also use it for the same situation if we wanted to form a grievance against one of us. Does that answer your question? Sorry, before.
Yeah, I
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all it was. It's just the.
I just didn't know, like, long-term, is there like actual potential to like go ahead and like is that long ways down the road to actually like try and like move somebody, or like how does, or that would be something USG would have to do on their own? They would have to.
So for the breakdown of the process, in theory, the way it would work would be within the next, now that we have the operating paper, we will send this document. Now that you've seen it, there's no uproar of people saying it's horrible. Basically, we'll send a copy to the administration and to the people who file grievances and to the APUs, and ideally we'll carry out the investigation within before the next couple weeks before finals, and then they'll come back with a recommendation. It's kind of explained it in the paper itself. Come back with a recommendation of the findings and a general recommendation that action should be taken upon those findings, and present that to the administration and to everyone here by resolution. And then we'll vote on the resolution. So that way, if the administration chooses to differ from what our committee has found, we can then go over their head and I don't want to do this, but I mean, if it kind of push came to shove, I would present the resolution at this board of trustees meeting in December. Sorry. Go ahead.
With the student legal fee, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the impression that at our last meeting, we agreed that to see if a special meeting with GPSC and USG to agree and to also meet with the student legal assistants to see if $1 would actually be helpful, because I was under the impression we was having a discussion that we wanted them to be able to function at the level that they were previously functioning. And so would it be, did we get with student legal assistance to see if $1, if it would just help a little bit, or would it actually, because I don't think we actually agreed on $1.
So having, being the member on the advisory board of the Siuc Gpsc department, the consensus within the meeting was that $1 would suffice, but they would likely also need to come back and do sometime in the future, but there's really no way to tell until you have enrollment. I've reached out again, but I've given the same response, that they're going to hold true to the 11% increase, and if they have 11% increase, all they need is 50 cents. So you kind of get a, that's the blanket statement I'm getting from that. No, It's a little, and that's why we're doing the resolutions, because it's frustrating, why we have the advisory boards. You come out of it, and because that was a long continuous process in of itself, like it was a 30-minute meeting, it turned into a 3-hour meeting, because they wanted to, base the increase off of, 11% increase enrollment next year. And so, and then coming back and not.
Can we base on 11% decrease in enrollment?
The standard, operating procedure would assume that we optimistically, presume that it's gonna get flat. And, if we'll start to look at, we'll have a trending statistic sooner than later, after this petition. We could probably go by 11% decrease. We'll have more years of consistent drop. Would be I don't know, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but,
Because it just doesn't make sense to say $1.
so if you read the resolution, the sense is that we're, and that what USG voted on, because we tried the special meeting, there's no way unless we met, on Tuesday and today.
Even that wouldn't have worked because we made the recommendation in before the close of business last week, and USG wanted to fight about it in Senate. And
The basis is that the logic that we're using to use the dollar increase is that we're upholding the recommendation of the advisory board, which we have student members on, and that if we're gonna, that's been standard practice, and that the administration should follow their best practices instead of doing whatever the heck they want because board of reasons. I don't know if, I'm, as the person who recommended and championed the board's $1.75 increase 2.5 years ago when our enrollment was higher than it is now, you don't have to sell me on it getting as much money for them as possible, considering we pay $12 a year for a legal retainer, and how much more, how much more you could have if they had just if it were $15, so to speak. But for right now, that's our new offering and moving forward in that way. Because USG actually voted on the 50 cent as well, because they voted on whatever was presented in front of them, and so it was kind of a feat in of itself to get them to re-vote on the dollar and under the resolution exactly. Any questions on that? Is it lively? That's old business. New business. Did you ever get a chance to see the campus climate and free speech statements that we put out there in the meeting? And everyone received it before then. The campus climate was just published with our names on it as the executive officers because we really had zero time to respond and were asked for a response. And so if anyone has any issues with that, you feel free to speak them here, or you can email me. I try not to speak for everyone without getting at least a consensus from the executive committee or the body as a whole if I don't have to, but given the situation, that's sometimes we have to do that. And also the free speech as a reaction to the shocking incident that happened last month was also publicized. If you guys saw that, Okay. So without any discussion, we'll move to officer and committee reports, starting with John Flowers.
everybody loves my reports because they're so happy. Yeah, this one's not going to be happy either. So graduate council hasn't met. Neither has grad council executive, which is funny because they meet tomorrow. So have we. Grad council exec meets tomorrow. Grad council itself has not met yet. However, the graduate school recruitment and retention task force did meet, which was interesting. So at this meeting, which was today at 2 p.m., the retention and recruitment task force looked over a resolution that had its first reading at the last graduate council meeting, which recommended an increase in current GA funding from $21 million to $40 million. The committee or the task force voted unanimously to support this resolution. The resolution will have its second reading at the first grad council meeting in December. So to be clear, the resolution resolves graduate council to support a recommendation of an increase in graduate student assistantship money from $21 million to $40 million, which is double the amount. Also, within this meeting, Dean Lee gave some information about the Dean's Retreat, which happened today. So they did. The focus of the Dean's Retreat was to discuss programs in all areas. So we have 110 total programs, 35 doctoral programs, 75 master's programs, and the subject of the day was cutting programs at all levels. Dean Lee raised concerns about recruitment and increasing enrollment without giving resources and by prioritizing cutting programs. He is against this as a cost-saving measure. He says that the elimination of programs does actually more damage to our overall graduate school reputation than any good. He also predicts that the graduate enrollment will decline to around 2,000 students if the current trends continue into next year, and he has no reason to assume that they won't. This leads him to be concerned that SIU is not nationally competitive where funding, support, and graduate education is concerned, given the continued praxis of recommending program eliminations and reductions. So his point is basically that the practice of cutting away at various aspects of the institution is reducing our capacity to be nationally competitive, and at some point the institution will not be able to recover from those cuts. So as part of this retreat, the rationale of the deans was simple. It's up to the deans whether or not they want to cut professional staff, NTTs, or graduate students. Now, the chancellor has been hosting meetings with faculty. There was one for COLA that I was unceremoniously ejected from. I will explain that in private if anybody wants any information about that. But in these meetings, the chancellor has told faculty that the elimination of professional staff is not an option. This is interesting considering that the majority of the members from multiple departments, from COLA to CASA to engineering to MICMA, all had the same report. So that is to say the chancellor advised departments not to eliminate professional staff. NGTs and GAs are on the block. And this is a problem. This is a problem recognized by the graduate school, and Dean Lee is apparently committed to doing whatever is necessary to safeguard graduate programs. Furthermore, Dean Lee says, and I quote, "Let us be realistic. We have been given a task to increase enrollment by 10%, but we are cutting left and right. We have no strategic plan. We have no guidance. If we need to downsize, we need to engage in strategic downsizing and not cutting without a plan." So, it is the position of the graduate school that this ongoing practice of elimination is done so without concern for the longevity and health of our graduate programs across the board, and will eventually result in the shuttering of our graduate education here. So the chancellor and the graduate recruitment and retention task force is going to request that the bare minimums of a strategic plan be presented to faculty and staff so that they know what's going on. From the member of the committee in chemistry department, anecdotally, he says graduate students don't want to apply here. 20% of their population comes from SIU, 20 to 30% from other places. His anecdotal report is that students are worried about the application costs, the money required, and they need to think about ways in which to increase the application pool. The only reason I mention this is as the graduate student constituency, it might behoove us to provide some input on the reasons why our graduate enrollment is declining. So to that end, you guys can send us emails or send me emails to the GPSC email address, just your positions on why graduate enrollment is declining across the board. Dean Lee asked me about this, and I said I would go find out. So the last thing is again, the Graduate Recruitment and Retention Task Force unanimously voted to support the resolution to increase graduate school, to increase funding to graduate students from $21 million to $20 million.
Excuse me.
If Siri has any input.
Oh, no, you might want to ask her.
See? If Siri has any input. The other thing is, and I really hate talking about USG, but this is kind of important since we passed a resolution about this. Since went to USG to present a resolution for investment from fossil fuels. As many of you may be aware, we passed a similar resolution in 2015. This resolution met with strong resistance from the USG Senate. They eventually resolved to table the motion and form a committee to investigate divestment from fossil fuels at SIUC.
Was the person who helped sponsor, it was the USG student who sponsored our bill present or still here?
No, it was a different person from the same organization that we worked with. But this, I mentioned this as a concern because this is, if we have one student government that has resolved that the institution should do this and another that disagrees, we have effectively divided the student body on this position. So it's worth considering. The last thing is, and this is kind of a graduate school affair, there are some updates to the Student Recreation Center. None that are too major except for the replacement of some lockers. And the Student Recreation Center is engaging in an initiative with the city of Carbondale to build a skate park, a competitive skate park right next to the police station. This will be between a $300,000 and $400,000 project, which the city of Carbondale is funding. So this money is not coming out of the student recreation fees.
The Carbondale Police Department.
The public safety.
SIU.
No, the big,
Carbondale.
yeah, the Carbondale one, the fortress looking thing.
One in progress.
Yeah. The only money or the only thing that the rec center paid for was the initial draft designs, and that came out of the foundation account and not from student fees. Also, USG will meet every week.
They're meeting what?
Every week.
They're meeting every week now?
Yes.
Well, we're gonna stick to 2 weeks unless anyone asks, yeah. So make that clear, if we any issue with that, then we can,
I have one more thing.
Yeah.
And this actually slipped my mind because so several graduate students have approached me with concerns that they are not being granted keys or other means of accessing the resources that they need to do their work, e.g. they can't get into their offices because their departments are not giving them keys, or they're not getting, and yes, I know this is a weird thing to talk about, people are not getting keys to the buildings in which their offices are located. I have spoken with Dean Lee about this, and he said he'd look into it, but I also have a meeting with him tomorrow, and that will be the first thing on my agenda. If graduate students can't get into their office to do their work, then where's the point in having an office if they cannot get access to the resources necessary to do their research or any of their other projects? What are you even doing?
Are they
So,
being
what
told?
buildings are they?
all
Or just like one
it's a
main
variety. Some people who are teaching classes and have offices in the comm building are not getting access to that building to get into their offices. Some people in Feiner are not given key fobs, but they're giving keys to their offices. And I'm speaking specifically of students who are responsible for teaching courses and have offices. Other students are not given access to the various materials that they need to engage in their projects, some of which are held in, say, School of Art and Design, right? So they're not getting access to kilns, blacksmithing, things like that. I've had enough of these complaints that it was an issue worth bringing up to Dean Lee, because if you guys can't get at your the necessary things you need to, say, complete your degrees, then that's a problem. So,
Anyone else has any other issues, or you have any friends or students, please send those to us. an email or text or whatever, because we can also go to facility manager.
Yep.
And talk about that and make sure we can get that at the bottom of it. Anything else?
Questions?
And you keep saying that, is that, so that increase in funding with the graduate council, you keep saying money, that's just symbolic largely?
So this is something that is actually kind of worth talking about. It's not symbolic because the graduate council represents the collective will of the graduate faculty, but that it only operates if the graduate faculty actually go and do something. So grad council passing a resolution to support the increase of, and they actually put a firm date on it, to support the increase of graduate student funding from 21 to $40 million is not, or is partially symbolic, but it also represents a genuine desire on behalf of the faculty that this increase be accomplished. Now, whether or not the administration pays attention to it is another matter. They can choose to ignore one of their constituency bodies that has resolved that the institution do this, but that's politically not good. So they would basically be ignoring the will of their graduate faculty, the people that they have entrusted to maintain the graduate programs, just out of hand. That's not a good thing for them to do. So in some senses it is symbolic, but it's only symbolic if the faculty allow it to become symbolic and take no additional action to support the resolution. Dean Lee, on the other hand, is not at all willing to let the resolution die as a symbolic gesture. So there is that.
So, and for clarification, kind of to a context, as far as we know right now, the administration, or they have in the past, but they're basically in terms of budget recommendations and cuts and anything like currently, with the lack of a master strategic plan, and just ask the deans of the colleges themselves to give them their budgets and act accordingly. So, and even though those deans individually represent graduate programs or house graduate programs, like the graduate school isn't a part of that, really in terms of like cutting and things like that. So there's kind of it's a disconnect at this point. So.
Other questions?
All right, thank you, John. As always, the happy-go-lucky speech. Luke?
All right, my speech is neither happy-go-lucky or rosy. It's just, so over the last month and a half, the allocation board has been working on developing a student fee survey, which we have updated you on from time to time. Again, the goal of this student fee survey is to gauge graduate and professional students' interest, utilization, attendance of student programming council events. As you all may know, the way our student activity fee is divided, we give a portion of the student activity fee based on graduate and professional student enrollment. There's also another part of that student activity fee that goes to the student programming board, Rainbows End, and I think maybe one or two other entities. So what we wanted to do before we go to the administration with a proposal to possibly repurpose student activity fee, we wanted to be able to go with data, telling them what students think about student activity fees and the utilization of how those dollars are currently used. So we've come up with a list of 17 questions that will go out into a survey, hopefully the week of November 29th. We want to get done before winter break, so that would give professional students 3 weeks to complete the survey. Again, the questions ask not only about student programming council activities and events, but also about athletic support and attendance at athletic events as well. And then also towards the end, ask students whether or not they feel inappropriate for a portion of the students in addition to what GPSC already receives, more of that comes to GPSC so that we can sponsor more events, more symposiums and things that directly benefit us. As I will share with you shortly, because of the budget cuts, we've had to trim ourselves on all of our accounts. Currently, right now, we have $30,313 left in event funding, uh, which is that can be gone in one meeting. So we are possibly one meeting away from having no more funding to support events that graduate professional students attend and want. So we feel like we have the circumstances that call for more funding for graduate professional students in the student activity fee. The survey hopes to bolster that with feedback from our students. What I can do is I won't go through each of the questions. The FAB committee has already done that. We've gone through each question. What I'll do tomorrow is send that out. If you guys have any questions about the questions we've already approved, or if we should add something else, please feel free to do that. But what we present to you via email is our view. Any questions?
A link to the survey will be on our website with the informative post about it. And we've been working on the majority of the semester of establishing an actual listserv for all the graduate professional students on campus to send out and to reach as many people as possible. It hasn't been as easy as you might think, considering how many listservs are on campus, unfortunately. But the intent is to email the survey to every graduate professional student so we get as much feedback as possible. So that way they can't say we are not proposing the will of the students, which has been an issue this semester. Remember, as we progressively get further into budget talks or considerations in committees, unfortunately, it's happened at least 3 times. I know about it to more than one of us that they're just being directly questioned. Well, I don't think that's what students really want when we talk in community. So, which is everyone's right to do, of course. It's a free country, and while we would obviously disagree, to back our disagreement when we started getting some more holistic data. And so, thank you. Is that all you have? Any questions?
What's the holdup on, what's the roadblock on the listserv?
I could not tell you because initially the administration, when we reached out to them at the beginning of this year, or really at the end of the summer, to facilitate this, the answer that we got was they would allow us to send out 2 messages to the campus student body a month if we gave them what they wanted to send. And so it would basically, if you had an email from FormSync or the student engagement, and so it's like a message within a message, and we, I think for pretty clear reasons, didn't agree with that because then it looks like it's in the administration, if it's not, and then they, that gives them the power to not send it out if really they don't want to. So, yeah.
So that's the compromise.
Yeah.
The initial reason was they want to give us access to the email addresses for all the graduate professional students. That was their initial opposition. The compromise was, well, instead of giving us direct access to that listserv, they would be a emissary in a way, and they would convey our message to them, which we found.
What was their reasoning for not wanting? I mean, this is the governing body for.
They just they say that confidentiality, and then what they Well, also, and just so
So,
everyone is clear too, is I FOIA, right now I have a file with every single one of our email addresses, because legally we're a public institution, and it literally took me 15 minutes to get, in an Excel file, all the graduate and professional students' emails organized by department, because, that's the law. And so, which is why they said, oh, well, we'll send you out 2 messages after, and we told them that. And so, and the goal is, but to send out those is a very sorted process, because school emails can only, so without a listserv, you can only send out 500 emails at a time. The max out at 10,000. I thought we had 10,000, so it's just problematic, to say the least. And so, anyways, currently the roadblock is that there's an application process for listserv anyone can apply to. GAU has one, for instance.
GAU was provided one.
They're provided one because they're mandated to the contract, but it's the same thing as your department listserv stuff. There's a simple 1-page application, and we've submitted the application 2 weeks ago, and they literally have no way of, it's like the mandate in your, well, it's person in your, because there's no contact information. You can send an email, and yeah.
Can we just request a listserv from department to department, like go?
The listserv we requested is even to, it's so, honestly is that we self-load the emails ourselves onto listserv, and then utilize it that way, which we can do because it's not that hard to get update. And then optimally, the university would then just start providing us with email addresses, from the get-go, so we don't have to update the first semester. But what we do is FOIA it, and then whoever unsubscribed and left would be cleared out by semester and done that way, because we don't intend to email blast everybody all the time. It's just for instances of a survey, or if we wanted that campus climate statement would have been nice, but we didn't have things like that. And so that's what the application was for. So it's literally just access to have a listserv, so that way we don't have to email them out 500 at a time, and we just have a response back there. That's so.
What about through the D2L?
D2L, we could do it through D2L, but we'd run into the same kind of administrative roadblocks with sending things out through D2L. So as an aside, when you guys got the GPSC and USG statements, those came through that mechanism. Well, not D2L, but the mechanism of university communication. So it showed up as like this org sync looking thing. That's what we're trying to avoid. D2L would allow us to post a message on D2L. So when we logged in as a user that is flagged as a grad student, you get a message on there, just like undergrads get messages, or you get regular messages when you log in as a GA or TA to the org sync. It has that information. How many of us ignore that? So we're looking for a mechanism that allows us to reach out to our constituency that does not appear to be from the administration, is not easily ignored, and allows us to mass contact everybody without having to fight over whether or not we should have the information that we need to do our jobs.
Kind of just an irritating thing. I mean, it'll get resolved. It's just a matter of which we're just trying to make sure it's done the best way. And you guys understand that we're separate from the administration, usually at odds with them, but a lot of average students hang out. From our experience, most students don't know that because they're busy going to school and trying to get their degrees if they should. So, well, moving forward with my report, don't have a whole lot other than say that all search trainees now will be providing diversity training. I have to go through that today. Who's actually with the new associate chancellor for
Institutional
diversity and legal counsel, and it was informative. So I think there's a few people of you who are on search committees for us. Just forward in the future, all search committees are going to be requiring that from now on. Also, my budget committee has not met, but as a reminder, that is the committee that is forming the strategic plan that John was going on about. So that's why it's Dean Lee was. So the strategic plan that's in the chancellor said he's going to adhere to very strictly before the end of the semester, maybe before the end of next semester, the long-term budget goals and given ideally if we actually get a budget and not another stopgap. That's why it's important to get feedback as you can. You can reach out and just ask people any questions or department-wide, stuff like that, because I sit in that committee and it's only 8 people now. And so I get a creative voice for everyone. Other than that, we still need a couple more reps. So if you're interested in mass transit or the Eclipse Committee, and I got a couple others, as always, please feel free to contact me. The other committee I have on here that's not on the agenda is the Chancellor Search Committee. We already, as well publicized, receiving a couple applications, and we'll start vetting the applications fully and doing the first round of interviews, things like phone interviews, on the 15th of January. So, yeah, does anyone else have a committee report?
Yeah, I've got two. The Affirmative Action Committee has met twice this semester. We will focus on the faculty and staff component of the diversity plan. In the short term, specifically, we'll be reviewing how academic units and university recruit and retain the diverse faculty and staff. And in addition, we will also look at the tenure process to better accommodate the need for faculty to be a part of the diversity plan and initiatives. In addition, the Diversity Council has been meeting on a regular basis in Donald, so on that council, we're currently in the process of developing another campus climate survey. And we're also going to be embarking on a series of hashtag Speak Up input sessions the week of November 29th. They will be in various locations, and I think the flyer should be available by next Monday, if I'm not mistaken. If not, later this week or tomorrow. That's all I have.
Willie, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So this campus climate survey, is this the same survey that Lori Stetler said student affairs would be releasing towards the end of this semester? Is this replacing that survey, or are we going to get inundated by like 4 different surveys?
I'm not. I can't speak to the one that Laura Stetler was talking about. I know that this one is not affiliated with anything Student Affairs is doing.
I was gonna ask, now you said a campaign, for the most part, do you believe that that's kind of too close to the very end of the semester to really gauge?
So the idea was that we wanted to catch students this semester instead of waiting until next semester. That way, when we get back next semester, we can jump right into work. We will be doing some wrap-up sessions with graduate and professional students in January, just because, as I brought up in the meeting, once we get back from the break, law school students, we have a 2-week event here at the rest of the university have a 1-week event here, so I advise it probably better to have that conversation with at least that subset of professional students that right at the beginning of the semester. Any other questions?
I got a secondary committee report. I intercollegiate athletic advisory committees met twice this semester. We met this morning, and last time I wanted to go over our last meeting minutes again at the basketball team's position, as seen in the paper, that they decided to stand for the national anthem, receive positive reviews, and I get feedback on that.
It's
To stand during the national anthem, not sit. Yeah, well,
Yeah, like
the
not
protest
protest.
issue.
oh, they did protest.
Yeah.
Oh, and that was
They did a public statement about it.
the lack of protesting was seen
Yeah.
positive.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
They talked about the Siuc Spirit committee that they formed, trying to get students more involved in campus. They're looking for liaisons. So basically, the chair of it would send an email out to you, and you just forward it to your constituency, about upcoming games, events, athletics, where the players are gonna be at, public events,
Free swag.
free swag. Yeah.
Very nice. Exactly.
Yeah. If you're interested in that, let me know. I'll give me your email and I'll forward that to the chair for the Siuc Spirit committee. We had the head volleyball coach and student athlete Hannah Gpsc speak today. Volleyball is going for championship games this weekend. They're taking on Missouri State #1 and Wichita State #2 this weekend here at SIU. Now they've been plagued with some major injuries this year for their seniors, but their freshmen have stepped up a lot. One of their injured players though is one of the top ranked guards for the volleyball in the entire conference. She has more time handling the ball than anybody, but they're gonna push through to this championship game, and next week is their all conference tournament. They discussed movements in other universities about the football program. And there's a possibility that Mississippi Valley be entering into our conference. Or no, Mississippi Valley is on the schedule to play us next year. And they bring their football team always takes their marching band with them, so they're talking about having at that game like some marching band, whatever drumline stuff going on. The Title IX draft I spoke about last time is still not completed. It was supposed to be due November 1st. They're still working on the final revisions, hoping to have that soon. Title IX essentially discusses program cuts, how they're going to save money and stuff. So, the money special one-time gift from the NCAA disbursements is being formed. We're not allowed to use it in any way towards paying bills. Essentially, well, the rules are very specific on where they can use the money, or they'll suffer punishment for losing future money. So they're talking about disbursement amongst academic support for players like career skill counselors, diversity issues, diversity. There's this question going on about cost of attendance, which I'm looking further into. A bunch of other universities in North Dakota, I don't remember what they call it, the Big Sky Conference up in Montana. Alabama participates, a bunch of other universities. The Missouri Valley Conference decided to not participate in this cost of attendance program except for their basketball team program. This is basically an additional scholarship that the players receive. Sounds like kind of, to me, the way it was described, which until this is just my opinion, it sounds like a little way that boosters are getting money to players, just extra money over their Pell Grant and scholarship money that they receive anyways. But it is beneficial to a lot of our basketball players, especially the women's basketball players, to help cover their costs at home. So once I find out more information on that, I'll get another report back to the group. Other than that, they're revamped the entire student athlete evaluations and senior exit surveys. They're working with the psychologists or psychiatrists, grads, doctoral students, to form a questionnaire to better understand exactly the players' opinions and attitudes on campus, their coaches, their teachers and professors, and everything. And that's it.
I have one. Sorry, for that. The final exam committee. Is that what you're? No. I know most of you, the law school is different. Final exam schedule than most of the other rest of the campus. You should know. Law students, we're friends with them. The law school receives a week off for Thanksgiving, and then they come back. They have basically 2 days, 1 day of class, 1 week of class, and 2 weeks of final exam. Whereas everyone else gets, I think, 1 week. So if you teach classes and stuff, anyways, the goal and charge of the committee was to reevaluate the exam schedule and vet proposals and considerations. And one of the main ones put out there is expanding it to either letting some of the common exams be moved to a different week, or just expanding the entire schedule to a 2-week process at the end of the semester. And so if you have any questions or concerns about that, forward them to John, because he's going to be taking over the committee, because I don't teach any classes and I have a very limited ability to advocate. So you can help how it affects you as a TA, or if you, because we don't have any mandatory, many mandatory exams throughout the year. So the main effect it have for us is, time required to grade your final exams and to turn around and administering them and whatnot.
So my last committee report is from the non-academic program prioritization committee. So we finished our recommendations, and I can't say anything about them because they involve matters that I can't talk about, generally personnel. The committee has said that after submission to the chancellor, which should have been this week, they will make an attempt to make the recommendations public, either with the things that we're not supposed to talk about redacted or limitedly covered up. But there is a push from within the committee, actually, that from within the committee, the primary recommendation was that our compilation of recommendations was to be made public to the campus community, that the administration should make a good faith effort to make public what we came up with. So we just have to wait and see what form that takes.
Okay. Roundtable discussion announcements. I just have one announcement. We have one more meeting this semester. It's been somewhat of a tradition, if you want to call it that. Is at the end of the last meeting of each semester, we have like a potluck. I was still obligated by and Amanda Barnard's honored to make sure that keeps on going strongly. Here, I don't know if everyone would understand that. So if we can send out a list, or everyone can commit. Usually it's entrees and desserts. We'll provide the drinks still, and
One more committee report. I got this email today. I forgot, which I'm confused about. Maybe John can help me out on it.
Sure.
On the new programs committee that I sit on through grad council, we are pushing. We're going to propose next week a new program, which is Accelerated Master of Arts and Masters of Science in economics.
What?
An accelerated MA and accelerated MS in economics is being pushed through. And there's an elimination of an RME for the elimination of the urban ecological landscape concentration in PSAS.
So those both will be first readings because neither of those came up in graduate council last week. Last week, the only things that came up in graduates council were the creation of a MS JD with a concentration in educational law and some other stuff that had been up previously. Those two will be first readings. The eliminations, for just general knowledge, whenever an RME comes up for the elimination of a program, typically it's because that program has or that concentration has already been shuttered due to either lack of faculty or lack of student interest. So it's really removing a process to remove the thing from the books so that we're not engaging in false advertisement. Other times that an elimination RME comes up is because a program has been renamed, but somebody has not removed it from the books. So elimination RMEs are not for axing programs. It's usually because, or these are usually housekeeping things. I say this because every time, if they move forward with a plan to eliminate a program that still has students and faculty in it, they have to go through graduates council's process. And you have 5 representatives to graduate council who can exercise voting power. And since graduate council runs on Robert's Rules of Order, if we wanted to be nasty about it, we could filibuster the motion. So that is to say that when they plan to eliminate a program, your grad council reps will hear about it first because it has to go through the new programs committee. And then it has to go through graduate council. It actually has to go through grad council exec, or our new programs, grad council exec, and then grad council itself. So if they decide to axe somebody's program, you'll hear about it from us. If you don't hear about it from the press, if you have a pressing need to preserve this program, we do have available measures that we can use to delay that kind of thing. So, yeah.
In
So,
short,
I want to make sure, because I wasn't at the meeting because I was in the hospital, but the MA and MS in economics was not read because this was sent out an email a week before.
We didn't have a first reading of it. It wasn't on the agenda. If they try to run it as a second reading, I'm just going to put it out there.
I'll make
No.
sure it wasn't read.
in short too, is so why it's important is because usually your program is probably not going to tell you the cutting itself or something else in your department, like the law school last year with like the MLS and LLM programs without informing any of its students. And so, but after, not really.
I mean, what, a month before they cut it, so.
And so, so that's why it's important. So if you get that, but and if you feel strongly one way, it doesn't mean, just let us know what's going on with the if and when it comes up. Back to
Was just thinking about some of the things that we were talking about last semester and being more, doing more efforts to see about getting more representation from our academic programs. So rather we're sending out and looking at all of the academic programs, all of the undergraduate programs, and sending out an invitation to their department chair to say, hey, you have these many students, which means that, and there was.
So I can actually speak to that because I did a lot of the legwork on that. So the problem with that was, and this is on the minutes, and I don't generally care because I've spoken to Dean Lee about this. The problem with this was I cannot go to Dean Lee and say, give us all the information for the students in all the programs, et cetera, because he has to go to the deans who have to say, give us that information, or he has to go to the deans and say, give us that information. The deans have to go to the chairs and say, give us that information. What happened when we attempted to do this at the beginning of the semester, when ideally all the programs should have their enrollment data and the contact information, is we met with stern resistance from the deans. From some deans and from some chairs and directors. They either ignored our requests or they ignored our request or said no, and we had to go up a level. And when we went up a level, sometimes deans said yes. Dr. Komaraju said yes, and then sent an email to the chairs and directors, and then the chairs and directors took forever to respond, and that was a problem. So this is one of those things that happens, or this is one of the reasons why we're trying to get the listserv together, because it has become abundantly clear that we cannot rely upon the administrators of our programs to provide us with the information necessary to accurately represent our constituency. This is the point I brought up with Dean Lee, and he's basically thrown his hands up and said, I tried helping you out, but they just don't listen to me. So yes, we tried it. Yes, we ran into resistance from some chairs and then some deans. No, we do not have a mechanism to overcome this, except for me in my GPSC report in grad council saying we are still encountering resistance from chairs, directors, deans to providing us with the information necessary to represent our constituency body. I would ask that this body do something about it, and they can ignore me, or they can decide to do something about it. But that is where we're at. If I'm going to be broader about this, there's a kind of communication breakdown all across campus. Faculty aren't talking to administrators aren't talking to faculty, deanlets aren't talking to deans, things like that. Communication across the campus is extremely poor. So when you need to get something through institutional mechanisms, e.g. a listserv request, it takes forever. It's even worse when they don't see the point in giving you the information, or they don't want you to have it.
Okay, so what can we do as an organization to kind of offset that, or to keep to keep pushing for that? And two, to offset that, because there's graduate students that I've spoken to who don't even, this isn't our fault, but this is their fault, but who don't know that we exist.
Tell them about us. Give us
So,
a
right, I mean,
part of what we're gonna do is what Thomas said, we're gonna develop our own listserv to speak directly to graduates from students. One of the first messages they'll receive is the survey, but before they get to the survey, there'll be a brief explanation about who GPSC is and what we do. Hopefully that will be our first entree to directly have the communication.
Unfortunately, in years past, many years past, or maybe just creation, this body has chosen to, which I can understandably, in a lot of regards, kind of silo itself off from the rest of the campus because they get frustrated, from people just ignoring or not acting when they need to be acting and so on and so forth. But since I became president and even vice president, you've gone to every meeting that you don't want to have to go to just to make sure that GPSC is known or there, every graduation we've been to, all those things that are really serve no other purpose but to bring light that GPSC does exist and it is in fact an actual constituency. And to that end also is orientation. We've done more orientation in the last 2 years than we have in the last, I can say last 3 when Matt was here, though, didn't ever before. The short and fact of it, though, is our budget is almost half of what it was in 2011. And so when we give out less money, a lot less people care that we exist, everything, because we aren't very much what community today type of society. With that being said, though, we'll send out another request for members after the 10-day drop-off at the end of January, or probably February, I guess, because we, graduate schools, we actually is a significant, I think, turnover, more so than the undergraduate school for enrollment. And keep on doing what we're doing. So, we actually now have more different representation and more numbers, despite what it looks like tonight. We have the largest on paper numbers as a council than we have in the last 7 years.
And that's because we went and pushed and fought and tried to get as many people here.
Keep in mind that's with a 5-year 30% drop in what we've had, the corresponding uptick in actual student body representation.
But the things that you guys can do for us is when you get our emails, send them to your constituencies, send them to the people on your listserv, tell the people in your offices, things like that. I'm looking at you. He's in my department, so I know what happens on our listserv.
You usually get to it before Dave.
That is true. This is true. I have access to our listserv, so I send it out as fast as possible because. But no, tell your colleagues, tell your friends, tell them that we're here, we're doing things, we have, particular amounts of institutional authority that we can do things with. And if they want to say in how their institution is run, this is generally the place to do it.
2 seconds, I just want to add on to the close. So to close that out too, just also is realize in things of you still see even the paper, the Siuc Gpsc. This year we've had a reporter here for every meeting, which hasn't been the case in more than a couple of years. I think we've been in at least 15 stories the last 2 years, i.e. this week, with either climate statements or general op-eds or whatever the like, between either us individually as the elected officers or as the executive council. So, those type of things.
GPSC, currently, if you look at the tags on the DE website, we have a 1-to-1 ratio of reports to month, which is larger than anything or any other group, including the administration.
Okay, to close this out, unless anyone else has anything, there's going to be a Know Your Rights info session, which I think John's going to be part of. this Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Part 1 will be a Know Your Rights during law enforcement interactions. And Part 2 will be a Know Your Due Process Rights at SIUC. One of our grad students came to us and expressed a desire to host these sessions in the wake of recent events. So we have reserved a space for this to take place. So if anyone's interested, please feel free to come out again this Thursday, starting at 6, second floor Student Center in the same.
And that's important because ignorance of the law is what?
Me? None of you.
There you go.
Yeah, hey.
Day
in the
3,
clutch.
law school guys.
I'm trying to figure out
Try to-
who's the student and what was the situation recently on campus that's about due process.
Oh, there's no situation on with regards to due process. So I was asked, because as president of the union, I have to know both the code of conduct, the academic grievance process, and what counts as a violation of the GAU contract. So I have more code of conduct stuff than I can.
There is
So the recent event on campus was not a due process violation.
No.
the freedom of speech.
Yes.
violation.
I wasn't
Oh.
talking about what you have to say.
Yeah. But if
Wait,
you're
come on.
referring to the
Election?
social media events, post-election, that's a free speech thing. I think they're looking at. So
Who's teaching it?
the tweet,
Not a
talking
twist.
about city
Facebook page.
I don't know who's teaching the other
Who's talking about the interactions with police?
Our student legal services doing.
I would say I would have
He's a
asked you
former
to
prosecutor.
approach. I understand, but I would have asked you to approach street law to allow some more students to
We weren't asked to do this. So the way that this came out,
be pro bono.
We actually are, sorry, I had to on the advisory board.
Oh, okay.
I understand, we're actually, the advisory board is going to do that, long term, this is just a specific event, because they do this all year long with a number of different bodies, and Professor Alvar specifically, championing that, wanting, to all be involved, for budgetary purposes alone, and for the, hours across the quarter.
as far as I know, this was not an event that GPSC was asked to put on. I was asked because I have to know these things for my various roles.
Right. Well, I mean, I said you merged it, but I was in charge of.
Yeah, no, you.
To be honest, I'd much rather have grad students doing this, but you know.
So, in close, we have Paula, next meeting. If you have any questions or updates or worries or causes of concern, please contact us. And unless I hear otherwise, problem getting a hold of our pictures or coordinating it, I'm going to assume that we're going to push it off until January unless you want to do it for the next meeting. You can have that the last meeting.
Push it off again.
Interview that they have to have. Okay, so we'll probably
We might even have to push off further here, but maybe push off for new members.
the first or second. It'll be easier to follow up because you can just send them to the person on West Campus, and so having it here, like on the hall, and having everyone just walk up and get a headshot and then get a collective picture is the coordinating issue. So we'll assume that within the first 2 meetings next semester, we'll have 3 headshots for everybody. So, and we'll update you as you make sure you don't show up in a red sweater. So,
School pride colors.
right. I was just, it was, no.
Motion to close the meeting.
Motion to adjourn. Yeah.
Motion.
All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Please sign it if you have not.
Yeah. Please sign up. Get out. We'll see you 2 weeks.
Hey Clay, where's Tony go?
No,
They're
she had
still talking about it.
she had to leave.
They're still talking about that shit.
This is a count.
Hey, I do what I do.
Good.
Communications
meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so this resolution here is Jade.
Yeah, you want a copy of it?
Yeah.
Look, you're about to drop.
Sound like they take-
Man, I'm so tired, man. I had like so